Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Executive VP of TMC, Terashi. Thank you very much for taking your valuable time to attend this session. Last week, we had a joint press conference on collaboration with Panasonic. President Toyoda said that toward 2030, 5.5 million units of electrified vehicles as a target. And the message was conveyed by him. So Mr. Abe, the managing director here, talked about the history of hybrid technology. And then at the last week's press conference, the president talked about this collaboration on the battery development. And today, I would like to take the floor to explain our challenge toward the further wide use and development of the electrified vehicles. Actually, ZEV vehicle, 1 million units, PHEV hybrid, 4.5 million. Those units targets were supposed to be mentioned by myself, but already during the Q&A on the 13th, Mr. Toyoda already mentioned those numbers. So I would like to give the details of our challenge toward achieving these goals. So in the Q&A, the President Toyoda mentioned about the CAFE and ZEV. Zero-emission vehicle, ZEV, is based upon the regulation requirement. So the global car growth, according to the regulatory momentum, the level is maybe less than 1 million units per annum. In addition, every year 85 million units or the 90 million units are the conventional gasoline-driven vehicle, including the diesel vehicles. So conventional engine-based vehicles are huge volume. But CAFE, CO2 emission control, is applied as a regulation. We have to cope with those two requirements. So we are developing the car which satisfies the ZEV requirement and one to satisfy CAFE. In order for the ZEV vehicle to satisfy CAFE, it will take some more time. Quite often we say that hybrid vehicles were excluded from the environment-friendly vehicle category, but it's not the ZEV category per se, but the hybrid vehicles are important strategic vehicle to satisfy the CAFE. Now, I would like to talk about the form to which Toyota aspires to build a sustainable society and customer smiles through offering three values: safe and security, inspiration, environment. We will achieve sustainable growth by steadily forging a solid footprint. So today I will talk about electrified vehicles, and we will apply the same fundamental principle stance. On the other hand, in recent years, lifestyles and technologies are changing rapidly through innovation, and the customer needs and the industries are changing largely as well. And the automobile industry is not an exception. So this is really the cars are facing the profound transformation that comes once only in 100 years. But Toyota considers it as a chance. We can offer the new value which we never thought of, and this is a rare, wonderful opportunity to expand our business in order to build ever better cars. We will make a strategic shift to focus electrification, information, and intelligence. Today, I would like to focus our approach initiatives toward electrified vehicles, electrification. To reduce vehicle CO2 emission, electrification is essential and necessary. We already announced the Toyota Environment Challenge 2050. To achieve this goal, we are making steady progress. On the other hand, what types of electrified vehicles is needed is not decided by environment regulation nor manufacturers like us, but customers and market finally decide. For example, if you want to buy an EV, if you want to just buy one car, or FCEV or PHEV or hybrid vehicle, that is a customer's actually need. depending upon the customer needs, final decision will be made. But in addition, different countries are considering to introduce a new regulation, tax system, and other system, which will form eventually a large market. For example, in Norway, let's think about a situation like a country like Norway. Norway has the world #1 electrification ratio of the vehicles. Almost 50% of the vehicles are already electrified. Of that total, about 20% are BEV in Norway. So when you look at the best 10 models of the vehicles, EV and PHEV and hybrid vehicles are the major ones in Norway. But why in Norway the electrification of the vehicle is advanced so much? Because the country size is about equal to that of Japan, but it depends upon the hydropower generation, and it has a domestic crude oil production. So per capita GDP and total income is almost double of that of Japan. So affluent lifestyle available in Norway. In addition, the abundant power generation by hydropower, and they could prefer, they have a preferential treatment to the electrified vehicles. In case of Volkswagen Golf, compared to gasoline engine, EV car is cheaper because of a tax benefit given to the EV cars, or the toll roads are now free of charge, or charging stations were established in the parking lots in cities in Norway, or they have dedicated lanes available only for the electrified vehicles and so on. So the running costs also prefer the electrified vehicles, and for the first time that the 20% of the BEV is achieved. By all these special measures, the 50% or so is achieved for electrified vehicles, and BEV ratio of 20% is achieved. Because a unique feature is that Norway is a country that doesn't have an automotive industry. It has a small market. So that kind of a policy, as well as the national measures, can be implemented based upon that underlying factors. What about the Toyota's business in Europe? As to the electrified vehicles, almost 50% in the last 1 year. So we are about to reach 50% of electrified vehicles in European market. So that's how we already advanced in terms of electrified vehicles in Europe on behalf of Toyota. Well, let's look at Japan. Following Norway, Japan is world #2 in terms of electrified vehicle population, which is 30%. But we don't have a low energy sufficiency rate. So we have to consider the use of diverse energy sources for like hydrogen, electricity. And so therefore we like to promote the use of HV as well as FCV. Norway #1, Japan #2 in terms of electrification ratio. But third and other countries of the world only have less than 10% of the electrification of the vehicles, and other countries should follow Norway and Japan. And in case of Japan business, almost half of the Toyota cars are so-called electrified vehicles category. As a mass volume manufacturer, to sustainably supply vehicles suitable for the customer needs, it is necessary and sufficient condition for us to increase our diverse lineup of the electrified vehicles. To popularize electrified vehicles, we believe it is necessary to take all-encompassing approach to products, technology, infrastructure. To achieve this goal, we set the specific milestones for electrification. From 2020, BEV rollout in earnest by Toyota. Specifically, in 2020, we will introduce a mass-produced, self-developed BEV strategy launch in China. And for both Toyota and Lexus brands, we would like to gradually launch those products globally in Japan, India, the US, and Europe. And by the first half of the 2020s, we plan to introduce BEV of more than 10 models. And around 2025, electrification the version will be available for all vehicle models. And we would like to expand this electrified vehicle lineup like Prius and Mirai, and all the models will have the electrified variation around 2025. We aim to discontinue engine-only models. And then in 2030, over 50% of the vehicles sold by Toyota will be electrified, and 10% or more will be BEV and FCEV. And to estimate the global sales volume according to the current global Toyota sales, electrified vehicles will be more than 5.5 million units in total, including HEV, PHEV, and BEV and FCEV. And ZEVs not using gasoline, such as EV, BEV, and FCV, will be more than 1 million units. So we would like to deliver those electrified vehicles to the customers worldwide. In order to achieve these milestones, we need our all-encompassing approach to products, technology, and social infrastructure. First, products approach. So far, as shown in this chart, this is an image of a product development by us. So taking into account the driving performance and technological features, they will use the BEV for the short distance, and FCV is for mid-range distance. However, as I said earlier, that society is going through a major change, and product needs of customers in market get rapidly diversified. Thus, we should not just stick to the categorization of the past. We need to diversify electrified vehicles to promote wider use. First, EV. To supply, of course, it is available as a mid-size to the large vehicles and buses and trucks and so on, but it has a broader application like commercial and sharing services. We will introduce diverse products together with Toyota Group companies. So EV Common Architecture Spirit, which is the company we founded, which will develop the fundamental technology for EV. I'd like to elaborate on that later. Next, I'd like to touch upon FCB. Quite often when I talk about this, people say, oh, Toyota, is it shifting from FCV to the EV? No, not that the case. We would like to cover both directions. In 2014, Mirai sedan type was launched, but for passenger car, SUV, and Lexus luxurious vehicles will also be available on electrified version and so on. And buses, and trucks, and commercial vehicles will also be covered. Together with the Toyota Group companies, we would like to apply this, the fuel cell technology to many different industries.
Lastly, I'd like to touch upon HEVs. Now, Toyota's traditional hybrid system will be relooked at and further refined from the perspectives of fuel efficiency, cost, and driving performance. For example, we might focus upon sports type, which accelerates well, or the high-power type, which has excellent towing capability, and also for emerging markets, one motor or mild HEV, such as affordable hybrid. You might refer to the LS, which we just announced the other day, which will be including the multi-stage hybrid type to cope with the variety of the needs on the part of the customers. Let me talk now about technology electrified products. Back in 1997, Toyota announced its iconic Prius, and over the 20 years, Toyota's sales of electrified vehicles have reached approximately 11 million units worldwide to date. Now we cover 90 countries countries and regions. And in terms of product R&D, we have 4,500 personnel with approximately sales volume reaching 1.5 million units. What does it mean? Well, 90 countries and regions. That really spells out for the fact that Toyota's electrified vehicles have been approved by the customers in terms of quality, durability, and reliability. Speaking of this volume, 11 million units. And the people who back up that volume in R&D, 4,500. And we have accumulated electrified vehicle technology and know-how, which is a huge asset to the company to date. Electronic motors, batteries, inverters, electronic control, as well as regenerating braking. And these are the technologies that we have built up to date. PHEV, BEV and FCEV alike can benefit from that foundation. Now, we would like to leverage upon the foundation we have built, and we would like to strive to achieve the current level of 1.5 million annually, not just in Japan, but globally. The foundational technology that I'm speaking of can be rolled out to BEV as well as FCEV. In other words, what we have built so far is truly the strength of Toyota, which can further contribute to the popularization of electrified vehicles. However, when we speak about this volume of 5.5 million, it really goes beyond what we have currently. It's a dramatic change in stance. Of course, over the 20 years, we have built up to the speed of 1.5 million, but we're now talking about 5.5 million in 2020, which means that we would like to have triple volume in just half of the time frame that we have surpassed from the start of this achievement, which will require huge efforts on our part. That is why I'm saying drastic change in stance. Now, amongst the 5.5 million, that includes 1 million zero-emission cars. Speaking of Nissan Leaf example, when you look at the battery capacity alone that is equipped on board the current widely sold BEV, that's 50% the capacity. So looking at volume itself, it's 50 times the hybrid battery. And when we think about the cruising range, of course, JCT-08, it's about 100 kilometers. So speaking of becoming par in terms of the cruising range, you can imagine how much more batteries are in need, how much more advancement in that technology is indeed in need. Now, in order to a widespread electrified vehicles, the key factor indeed is batteries, as I aforementioned. Not just the supply capability, but also the energy density, which has to do with the cruising range or charge time. Of course, that affects the vehicle cost largely. So we feel that for the development and production of such, we need to do a large-scale investment. So towards 2030, 1.5 trillion yen investment will be made as we calculate as R&D and CapEx. Just the other day, you heard us step on the axle towards that goal. Now, from the start of our business, Toyota has focused upon the importance of batteries, and we have spent needed efforts in the development of such. The all-solid-state batteries that we are aiming to bring to the market for practical use by early 2020s, of course, will contribute largely for the benefit and performance increase, because it's smaller and lighter, and also the cost benefit. We've just made an announcement, as you heard, on December 13th, 2007. combining the strength of Panasonic, which is a leader in the automotive battery. Combining that with Toyota's know-how, we believe that the alliance will help to achieve further in terms of developing prismatic batteries for automotive use. Of course, this was the final piece that we had been aiming for. Now, with this piece in place, of course, as a key factor fulfilled, we have a strong wind helping us towards our goal. So we're ready for the electrification. Now, 5.5 million units in 2030. We have already steered our ship towards that challenge. We're striving strongly forward. Now, lastly, let me touch upon social infrastructure. The electrification of mobility and the resources and energy issues cannot be separated. Toyota will not only produce and sell electrified vehicles to the society, but also work upon social infrastructure. First of all, in terms of resources, we will first focus on batteries. As the electrification continues, of course, the use of batteries will increase as the number of such units increase. Batteries, of course, require rare metals such as Ni, nickel, and Li, lithium. Of course, we would also be thinking about recycle and reuse because we need to be considerate of industrial waste being produced as a result. Now, so far, Toyota has always been engaged in reuse and recycle of hybrid batteries. We would like to do the same with electrified vehicles, especially when it comes to HEV reuse and recycle. And BEV, also in the same regard, we would like to reuse such batteries for stationary chargeable battery. That would be something that we can do, and power plants and business facilities such as factories will benefit from such use of renewable energy, recyclable energy. We have already started actions with the stationary storage battery. We would like to show you some examples using this slide. One that I like to highlight is the use of hydrogen station. We have decided to form a new company, which will be public-private enterprise incorporation. We believe that we need to use electricity and hydrogen quite well. That would be the foundation of the energy that the society will stand upon. Now, for the electrified mobility, we believe that there is much we can do in cooperation with the government in place. Now, currently, Toyota is positioned to lead the electrified vehicles market. When we look at 2016 performance amongst the 3.2 million units, Toyota alone had sold 1.4 electrified vehicles. Our market share exceeds 40%. So every 1 in 2 electrified vehicles sold today is our car. We have been the first to enter into such market, as you know. As President Toyoda explained to you the other day, we always consider to be a challenger. We would like to continue to be the market leader, providing electrified vehicles which match the customers' needs and the world market need. So far we have touched upon the details of our products, technology, as well as social infrastructure. Those are the efforts that we would like to be making in encompassing all directions. And the company formation for EV CAS, indeed, vehicle body cannot be developed away from the battery development. In other words, the two need to go hand in hand. It's almost like playing catch as in the baseball. From next year, Thereafter, the current alliance companies, as well as any additional alliance in the future, will strive for the same goal. In other words, it will not be just Toyota automotive units, but also other manufacturers' automotive units. I think the collaborative volume will definitely be in the scope. The ZEB speed, what would be the speed of such progress? We always need to keep an eye on CAFE, which is the number of cars which are really including a PHEV and other types, amounting to 4.5 million units altogether. So electrification, intelligence, and information, those are the strategic points of focus on our part. We would like to contribute for a sustainable society and customers' smiles, indeed. To kind of recap, electrification is very importantly based upon batteries. We have made many announcements so far, and the last piece to complete this puzzle on our part is battery, the key issue, key component of battery. And that's the purpose of this press conference. Of course, beyond today, we would be making further detailed efforts through the year, and next year we have a very fresh start for the new aims that I have aforementioned. So again, thank you very much for attending this conference, and please continue to focus upon our efforts going forward.
We now like to entertain the questions. About half an hour for the question answer session. A person with a question, please speak to the microphone. Please raise your hand and please speak to the microphone. Please identify your name and the affiliation company. Thank you. We'd like to give a chance to as many people as possible to ask questions. So please ask up to 2 questions per person. Thank you. Chikaoka Nikkei, manufacturing, monozukuri. Well, about this electrification, that this engine development, how is it being progressing? I'm concerned about the electrification of the engine because the new engine development, well, amongst different engines, the combustion efficiency should be raised to 50%. Mazda and Nissan are trying to develop a brand new engine. So engine itself is evolving markedly, I think. So at one time, your company, Toyota, also was developing this the high efficiency combustion engine, and you made an announcement on that high efficiency engine as well. Well, what about this new development of a new kind of efficient engine? And my second question is that to what extent on the BEV and EV, the merged figures are announced. But what about the BEV per se, 2025 or 2030? How many units, tens of thousands of units, do you intend to produce the BEV against the total electrified vehicle population? Well, about the engine combustion efficiency, engine itself, the development in the future was the gist of your question. I said earlier that the 2030, electrified vehicles, 4.5 million, still will be mounted with the engine. The other 50% still will have the engine. In other words, 90 million units are the target by CAFE. To achieve that, in addition to the conventional engine, hybrid basic special the engine, and it's the combustion efficiency must be improved. So combustion engine technology will continue to be evolved and developed. Better the combustion efficiency, then the hybrid and PHEV electrification technology will enjoy the benefit. So we will continue to develop the better engine, conventional engine as well. Turning to BEV, what will be the total units for BEV, battery EV? Well, as I said, that it's not that we decide what we want to do. What customer want to buy, they will determine what they want to buy. Or the ZEV regulation, there are many other regulations. How the regulation will advance, or infrastructure availability and progress might determine. So our ballpark figures is ZEV 1 million units are our assumption. Depending upon scenario, the proportion or ratio might change. So as of now, I cannot give you the exact figure.
This is Kudo of Nikkei. Thank you for the opportunity. And I would like to just verify on the definition. You said 5.5 million and over in 2030. Is this Toyota alone or Toyota Group collaboratively, including Daihatsu? That's one question. The other question is, at that time, Toyota's sales unit number at that time, if you could refer to that. The second point is regarding the 1 million ZEB to be achieved in 2030. What are the milestones or limitations you might see in R&D? You said 1.5 trillion investment for electrification, but for zero emission cars, if you have a breakdown of that investment in terms of resources as well as personnel, and also the lifetime for gasolines 13 years, but for ZEB, what about the durability? Are you going to aim about the same lifetime of 13 years? Now, thank you for your question. First of all, regarding those numbers, the group as a whole is a bit beyond 10 million units now. So in 2030, how many would be the number as we calculate? And then we it's not like we multiply that by 50%. Rather than that, what we did is to ZEB and PHEV hybrid, we came up with the numbers that we aim to sell. So it's kind of a built from the bottom kind of strategy formation rather than backtracking from 2013 goal. And the numbers that I have aforementioned are Toyota alone. We believe that as the consortium, or so to speak, grow bigger, the number targets, of course, will grow bigger for the entire group. So the number of electrified vehicles, as we increase on our collaborative parties, will include. The next point that you raised, which is 1 million units for ZEB, we have already talked about Prius hybrid 0.75 kilowatt hour for that Prius, and the recent comparative point we see is 40. So it's times 50, and in terms of mass, it needs to be about 20 times more. So conversion from hybrid to EV, of course, the battery size and the weight, it's a multiply of more than 10. So our hybrid battery is still a reasonable effort for us, but in terms of what we aim to achieve and the batteries required for that would be multiples of the current battery efforts. So say 1 million EVs, electrified vehicles, that would require the battery production of the multiples of plug-in. So that's basically what we are saying. And in the global picture, if we are foreseeing 20% or 30% being EV, I just want to emphasize on the battery requirements at that time, in that time frame within that picture, and who will be the manufacturer of such batteries. There are some risks I can mention, which is the material cost increase, and also the battery, it's the equipment industry, so they need to be manufactured in a clean environment, which will require a lot of initial investment, and also running maintenance cost is high. From lithium to all solid state, such conversion may require another large size investment. So again, the battery requirement is huge, and who is going to invest to make sure that the manufacturing is par with it, having enough capacity and such. So that needs to be in place before all electrification visions that I have aforementioned can be achieved. So in the last 1 to 2 years, I'm sure you are exposed to the announcements that Toyota had made, and I believe by that you can see the horizon of our future vision, what it is that we are focusing upon, where it is that we are aiming to go to with our collaboration with Panasonic. As you heard in our recent announcement, we have filled the last piece of puzzle to this grand picture. Now we can accelerate and really go towards our grand goal. In terms of the lifetime, of course, battery technology will be the important foundation to build up to that. What will be the durability, lifetime, and what are some technologies involved in that? What are some control factors involved in that? In other words, the use of batteries alone or the production of the batteries alone will not solve the entire picture. That needs to be developed in collaboration with the automotive body itself, and the two together, the car and the battery, can bring us to the achievement. So the announcement we just made the other day really finalized and completed our vision for electrification.
Ogawa of Nikkei Automotive. My first question is about the EV development. What is the division of roles among yourselves? Mazda and you had an announcement. A new company launch was announced as well. According to my understanding, your relationship with Mazda, you will develop the platform, like underbody and so on of the EV, BEV, covering a compact car, a small car to the big cars. And then for the commercial vehicles, a cell has to be common once to lower the cost. So that's my first question for clarification. My second question is that now Toyota in the BEV, EV area are making the very active stance at the three-staged approach to really push forward. In the past, you have a hybrid technology. You say, oh, we are ready to launch EV, BEV anytime. Regulatory situation has not changed drastically recently. But this fall, the Volkswagen announced that a big investment. So maybe did you consider Volkswagen's attitude in making a more the proactive stance on BEV and EV development? About the division of labor or the division of roles amongst the different companies, like Mazda, Denso, and Toyota announced about the development of EV CAS, a new company, to collaborate. Basically, the vehicle platform, body platform, is just one of the areas, but the entire unit, but the very special ones like motors and inverters and others will be developed, and battery itself. We have to have a very special requirement, specification, in order to have a full capacity of the EV, BEV. So standalone battery is not just the issue, but entire battery could be installed as a package in order to extend the lifespan and durability. What about the required cooling function? So all these specification requirements are taken into account. That is why this EV CAS was built, to do all this comprehensive service. If that property is achieved, then the lithium battery might be combined to a certain extent. If a solid-state battery is used, what kind of feature or property should we aim at in its specification? So that is the kind of this division of role. So the EV CAS company will actually stipulated a very detailed specification to the battery companies. But why we became so active and offensive or making such announcement on the BEV? So is that because we are responding to the Volkswagen? Maybe that was the gist of your question. But anyhow, for some time, for a long time, this is not the direct answer to your question, but for some time, we are saying we are not lagging behind. We do already have the technology for BEV and EV. We've been conveying that message. But still, some people say, oh, you are behind. Or some people say, Toyota, you are not behind. We know it. But why don't you launch a BEV? So that was quite a convincing statement by you. So we cannot just launch a BEV tomorrow. So the thing is that toward BEV and EV, what is the challenge? What should be solved to make a step forward? We have to clearly explain what we are doing exactly. So we are thinking about this for some time, as I mentioned today, and then as the earlier I mentioned in my answer. But battery is the barrier which has to be clearly solved first, because it was a missing piece. We say all the batteries can produce in mass production and so on. That's not the scenario Toyota can think of, because battery was the issue. So far we produce our own hybrid batteries. So we have to have a complete good battery story. And then when our desirable BEV and EV can be launched, that clear message should be launched. And some people were waiting, why you haven't launched the BEV yet? So that is why we are ready to accept any comments on these things.
I am Kawamura of GG Press. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I might be a bit redundant, but want to clarify. My question is regarding the alliance and your relationship. You talked about EV role division for CAS, for EV CAS, but looking at 5.5 million, your relationship with Matsuda, Daihatsu, Suzuki, and there are companies in automotive industry which are not in partnership with you now. Are you going to combine your hands with them, collaborate together, or not? That's my question, number one. And the second question is your effort for all solid state aims in early 2020s. What is your relationship with Panasonic in relation to the all state? And you talked about those target numbers to achieve in terms of the units. How does Panasonic get involved in that? I believe your number one question, number two question are quite interrelated in terms of my reply. The companies which are already in alliance do not have to. It's not like they're all required to use this battery that we are about to develop. EV CAS basically would like to take the leadership in determining the specs of the batteries needed, and which battery maker to actually use will have to be decided on a part of the OEMs respectively and separately. So all those alliance companies will independently make a decision as to which battery maker to use. And speaking of companies which are not in the alliance, the way to think about that is, it's not just electrified vehicles, but also, Toyota and Toyota Group's stance upon the vehicle concept as a whole for electrification. In other words, with ZEV and CAFE, those achievements require quite hurdles to be clarified. So when we talk about batteries or EV, hybrid, PHEV, FCEV, all these units need to be leveraged, used to the fullest. If there are any such requests coming specifically from OEMs, we're willing to open doors. We'd like to do the same with batteries. And the approval and the fit-in is very difficult, then we would like to have a have a solution in terms of the unit. So when we think about the environment, once we hold onto a good solution, then that solution shall be used for a wider use, more benefit to be shared by the others, so to speak. The second point was regarding our announcement with Panasonic and what is the positioning of all-state batteries in that partnership. Mr. Glower, which is EVP of our company at the motor show, talked about early 2020s as a time to commercialize for such vehicles. When we talk about 1 million electrified vehicles or BEVs, and the difficulty of coming up with sufficient batteries will be a very difficult task. I believe you have fully understood that. And if we were doing it just internally with our investment, at the time of manufacturing, Toyota alone cannot achieve that. We will need to make that achievement in collaboration with other companies vis-a-vis battery makers. So we believe that R&D process combining Toyota's strength and Panasonic's strength, coming up with the shape of it, the packing of it, and whatnot, and the spec. The capacity, of course, will be a very useful process. We will not separate all-state from lithium or any other types. It is a kind of a wholesome, comprehensive effort, which I think will complete the full circle as a business. And we believe that starting off together will be benefit for that whole circle benefit.
Okudaira, Nihon Keizai Shimbun. I have two questions. First point is about battery. What do you think, whether should that be in-house made or outside sourced? Because like a PHEV, I don't know, but basically you like to develop internally and build in-house. Is that the right understanding? In-house production. This business model, compared to the other automobile companies, outsourcing is a mainstream, procuring from outside. But the vertically integrated production is only you and Tesla, I think, maintain as a policy. The government of China is really investing, like the solar power panel and so on. The costs are going down. So the in-house production has merits and demerits. What do you think about R&D expense? Like FCEV will be developed, and you will have the omnidirectional or comprehensive encompassing activity, 2 trillion yen or something that you invest in R&D. So I think the budget gets difficult. You are no longer pursuing the volume. So how do you manage this R&D expense in the future? How about your cost sharing with other companies? The in-house production versus outsourcing, of course, that is the major decision with regard to the production of battery. The solid-state battery launching for the first time, for sure, we developed in-house. About lithium battery, it's getting better. So the current production line, we will consult with the Panasonic, but how is the speed of increased production in the required investment, and we have to strike a balance to decide which part we produce in-house versus outside procurement. We haven't talked to Panasonic yet, but maybe globally, the companies who might have this production capacity, then we outsource outside fabricators to produce the battery maybe. When you think of China itself, huge volume is expected. So maybe local possible production together with a local battery maker in China, that might create a win-win scenario for both parties. That might be a possible scenario. But as of now, 1 million units or 4.5 million units are the targets. We just announced that we like to work hard to achieve those goals. We have to satisfy different regulations, and the customer needs are changing. Or the battery itself. We have to create a competitive, high-quality battery. Those have to be taken into account to consider the future possibility of different forms of collaboration, including the in-house production and outsourcing. So we do not have the exact specific plan as to that split. That the volume I mentioned earlier might be difficult to be satisfied by just in-house development. As to the R&D expense or investment, personally, my work as far as my work is concerned, I've been involved in the business planning, alliance, and strategy. Those are my jurisdiction. To the engineers, I tell them, "Oh, you spend too much money on R&D." I used to complain. They say, "If you complain too much, why don't you do it myself?" So next year, I will be in charge of the R&D. So finally, we have created a good alliance and partners, and we now like to realize a good R&D. So I'd be responsible to demand more R&D budget from the head office. But anyway, basically 1 trillion level is this Toyota R&D. What can we do under this 1 trillion in budget? And basically, within the business balance sheet, we have to think it in that well-balanced form. So in a way, scrap and build is a good policy. We might be overspending in some area. Maybe we have to shift that money to a more advanced area like battery development and so on. So it's like a scrap and build concept applied to the budget allocation as well. In terms of R&D budget, is it just good to have the higher level? No. It's same to the capital investment. Even though you have big budget, if you don't have enough capable people to do it, they cannot spend money wisely. If they spend the money, they just waste money. In other way, as I said, that the R&D budget, as far as that's concerned, how effectively, efficiently do you use the money to achieve a good outcome? So that is the optimal business practice, and that is a big challenge we are faced with. And now electrification is a key word for this press conference today. But a year and a half ago, we introduced a new company system. And it is a part of this overall trend because we make profit in total. But when you scrutinize the model breakdown, there have a big gap. Some money-making model versus not. The small car making, for example, Toyota Compact Company is making small cars. They are hardly making any good profit. On the other hand, what about the tiny compact car maker, mini car maker, like Daihatsu? They were making like 100 billion yen, like Suzuki, making more profit, even though they are making such a tiny mini cars. So is the way we use money, is that really spent wisely and effectively? We have to learn more seriously with the others. So that's why we established this company's organization, and then we set up all these alliance with other companies to learn their practice. The 1 trillion budget should be more wisely and effectively spent. So it's an overall grand trend. So the budget, the absolute term, the figure of budget is not just sufficient. The way we have to change practice through electrification, but the way we do business every day should also be improved. That's overall practice that we like to improve.
Wall Street Journal runners, I have 2 questions, please. Number one, in U.S. Toyota dealer, what would be the day when a consumer can go to that and buy a EV, electrified vehicle? And this 1.5 trillion investment, please give me the time frame. So when would be the day when a consumer can go to a U.S. Toyota dealer and buy a electrified vehicle? Our public relations policy basically says that we cannot talk about product strategy. My question to you actually would be, when would be the date when America has that sentiment to wanting to buy an electrified vehicle? That was a very good question. I would struggle to try to answer that. But at Nissan, what they were saying is that there may not be a much volume of purchase, but they are selling Leaf. That's their strategic positioning, even if they do not make good profit. Is Toyota going to place the same strategy in place, or are you for the revenue? Well, so without the specific target date, I offer the following. Basic line of thinking is when we talk about electrification, the ZEB regulations is something that we keep in mind. Hydrogen will be our answer to ZEB, and local efforts are, of course, combined with the central efforts. But as ZEB become tougher and tougher, what would be the infrastructure catch-up pace, and the EV electrified vehicle or BEV market itself, how are the customers be ready to accommodate? How willing would the customers be to accept BEVs? We would like to keep that in mind to determine the pace of our, widespread adoption. Basically, we have this basic fundamental technology and the upper body, the body platform and whatnot, and then thereafter is the completed cards. It's unthinkable that we would just ship to China. We would include US and other locations as well. So in the reasonable early part of 2020s, I believe we'll see that day that you're asking in your question. So that will be the task that I will be making efforts upon starting January 1, 2018. So ask me that question again, if you would. And then you talked about 1.5 trillion investment, the time frame of such. The current battery R&D that basically added by what we will spend next year and whatnot. So 1.5 trillion is from next year to 2030 to come up with the battery technology for the volume of the cars that we aim to sell. About the half of 1.5 trillion, I believe, will be invested for battery R&D.
Thank you for your valuable input. I'm Nezu of Nikkei Electronics. I have two questions. The first of all, that electrification have three criteria. The one is battery, and then you mentioned mostly on battery. What about motor and inverter? Basically, that your company will develop it in-house. Is that the right understanding? Or BSA or other Nissan or Honda are doing, but they are strong. They are working with a motor supplier outside. They set up a joint venture to procure motors. So what's your thought on the motor and inverters? That's my first question. My second question is that you have formed a collaboration with the Panasonic. So you will start to consider different ways of collaboration. But this time, through this collaboration with the Panasonic, the last piece of the electrification is already satisfied. But you announced that you start to consider the collaboration. But you are already saying that the last missing piece is already filled. So what is why do you think that the last missing piece is already filled, even though you just are starting the feasibility study? Well, as to the first question about the motor and inverter, in-house development is not really the case, because Denso and Aisin, they are the Toyota Group companies. They are already producing those. So it's not that just develop in-house, but we already have that capacity in-house and collaborate further. If outside people would like to use our technology, we are willing to offer. And so some of the basic technology we would like to use and summon all the technology of the Toyota Group companies. We'd like to maintain our open stance in that point. The second question is very good. You really pinpointed the good part of the issue. Well, we've been talking about collaboration, but Toyota side approached Matsushita or the Panasonic, and then we share the same common understanding of the problem. In other words, that to develop the battery, the framework is already agreed upon between the two companies. based upon the overall framework, what about the tiny pieces and the parts? Because the basic framework is already agreed upon between two companies. That's the agreement. But the different specific areas are to be worked out from now on, one by one. But we have to expedite this. So we will, of course, have a feasibility study. But it's not that you start to write from this scratch. It's not the case. We already have the overall format framework. We are just need to start to paint the color. So not just Toyota and Panasonic as our alliance partners. It's not limited to just two of us. In other words, so many batteries have to be supplied in the future in the world. Globally, not too many companies are capable of producing huge amount of batteries. So we are the allies in here in Japan, Panasonic and Toyota, and then we should have a Japan original battery producers, suppliers, and then we might work with the other battery suppliers and work together globally. And then electrification should further be promoted for vehicles through that open partners. It's not that we will sit back and then this will end as it is, because it's going to be open improvement and expansion in the future. Thank you very much. This concludes this session. We'd like to end this part of the session. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for being here today once again.